It was the summer of 2017. My best friend Adam and I decided to take a road trip from our small town in Idaho to visit my cousin in Portland, Oregon. It was about an 8-hour drive, mostly through long stretches of highway surrounded by endless pine trees. We left around 6 p.m., figuring we'd split the driving and make it there by early morning. The first couple of hours were uneventful, music playing, the smell of fast food fries filling the car, the hum of the engine keeping us company. By the time it hit midnight, we were deep into the more remote areas. The road had no streetlights, and the only illumination came from our headlights cutting through the blackness. There were no cars ahead or behind us for miles. That's when I noticed the gas gauge dipping dangerously low. I hadn't realized how far we'd gone without stopping. Adam was half asleep in the passenger seat, so I nudged him awake. "Hey, man, we need gas. Keep an eye out for a station," I told him. He pulled out his phone and found the nearest one, about 12 miles ahead. I felt relief wash over me until we actually pulled up to it. The place looked ancient, like something out of an old horror movie. The sign above the pumps was faded, one of the fluorescent lights flickering. The store itself was dimly lit, the inside almost too dark to see from the outside. "Let's just fill up and get out of here," Adam muttered. I agreed. I stepped out, the summer night air heavy and still. The only sounds were the crickets and the faint buzzing of that dying light above us. As I began pumping gas, I noticed movement from the corner of my eye. A man stood in the shadows just beyond the edge of the light. He wasn't moving toward us, just watching. "Do you see that?" I asked Adam quietly. He looked, then his eyes widened. "Yeah. Just hurry." I tried to act normal, but every few seconds I glanced back. The man didn't move. He just stood there, half hidden in the dark. His posture was wrong, stiff, head tilted slightly, like he was trying to study us. When the pump clicked, I wasted no time. I screwed the cap back on, hopped in the driver's seat, and started the car. But before I could pull away, the man stepped forward into the light. His clothes were filthy. His skin was pale, almost gray. He had a smile, not a friendly one, but wide and fixed, as if he was forcing it. He raised his hand and waved slowly, his eyes locked on mine. I didn't wave back. I threw the car into gear and pulled onto the road. We didn't speak for several minutes. The silence was heavy until Adam finally said, "Did you see his eyes? They looked wrong." "What do you mean?" I asked. "They weren't reflecting the light like normal. They were just black. Like, completely black." I thought maybe he was exaggerating, but something about the encounter left a pit in my stomach. I kept glancing in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see headlights following us. About 20 minutes later, in the middle of nowhere, Adam stiffened. "Dude, look behind us." I looked. At first, I didn't see anything. Then, faint in the distance, there were headlights, and they were getting closer. We hadn't seen another car for over an hour. My hands tightened on the wheel. The vehicle behind us closed the gap unnaturally fast. Soon, it was tailgating us, its high beams on, blinding my mirrors. I pressed the gas. 70, 80, 90, the other car matched my speed effortlessly. "What the hell is going on?" Adam said, panic rising in his voice. I took a sharp turn onto a side road I didn't recognize, hoping to lose them. The path was narrow, trees pressing in from both sides. But the car followed. Then, just as suddenly as it appeared, it stopped. I could see in the mirror, the headlights stayed at the edge of the turn, not moving forward. We kept driving for another 10 minutes before we found our way back to the main highway. Neither of us said a word until we saw the glow of a bigger, more modern gas station up ahead. We pulled in, relieved to see other people inside. I went to use the restroom while Adam grabbed snacks. When I came back, his face was pale. "What's wrong?" I asked. He pointed toward the window. The same man from the old gas station was standing by the far edge of the parking lot, smiling that same wide, unnatural smile, watching us. We didn't even buy anything. We ran to the car, locked the doors, and drove the rest of the way without stopping. To this day, we have no idea how he got there before us, or why his eyes were so dark. This happened in the fall of 2019, when I was driving from Denver, Colorado, to visit my sister in Albuquerque. It was a solo trip, about a 6-hour drive, and I'd done it before without any issues. That night, I left around 8 p.m., planning to arrive just after midnight. I liked driving at night because the roads were emptier, but that also meant there were long stretches with nothing around but darkness. The first couple of hours were fine. I had music playing, sipping on gas station coffee, feeling relaxed. Then, about halfway through New Mexico, I noticed headlights appear behind me. They were far away at first, but after a few minutes, they got closer, much closer. I was going the speed limit, maybe a little over, so there was no reason for them to be right on my bumper. I moved to the right lane to let them pass, but they didn't. Instead, the car stayed exactly behind me, keeping the same distance. I remember thinking, okay, maybe they're just being cautious. But then I noticed something that made my skin crawl. The car didn't have its high beams on, yet somehow, the headlights were too bright, almost white, like LED lights turned up to an unnatural level. And no matter how the road curved, they stayed perfectly aligned with my car. After 10 minutes of this, I started to feel uneasy. I decided to pull into the next rest area just to shake them off. When I exited the highway, the car stayed right behind me. The rest area was small, just a couple of vending machines, a bathroom building, and maybe 4 parking spots. There were no other cars there. I pulled into a spot and turned off my headlights, hoping the car would just drive past and leave. It didn't. Instead, it pulled in and parked 3 spots away. Its engine stayed running. I couldn't see inside because the windows looked pitch black. Tinted, maybe, or maybe just the lack of light. I pretended to check my phone, trying not to look directly at them. After about 30 seconds, my nerves got the best of me. I turned the ignition and backed out. The car immediately backed out too. I got back onto the highway, my heart pounding. The car followed, keeping the exact same distance behind me. That's when I made a decision that was probably reckless. I pressed hard on the gas and took the next exit without signaling. The road curved sharply, and I hoped they wouldn't have time to follow. But they did. The road I'd taken led into a small, rural town. The streets were empty, and all the shops were closed. I weaved through a couple of turns, finally pulling into an alley behind a row of old brick buildings. I turned off my lights and waited. My breathing was loud in the silence. A few seconds later, I saw the glow of headlights sweep past the alley entrance, then disappear. I stayed there for a minute, thinking I'd lost them. Finally, I put the car in gear and pulled back onto the street, heading toward the highway. I was about to turn onto the on-ramp when I glanced in my rearview mirror. The car was there. Not with its headlights on this time, just there. Right behind me, almost blending into the darkness, as if it had been following me without lights for who knows how long. At that point, panic took over. I floored it back onto the highway, deciding I wouldn't stop until I reached Albuquerque, no matter what. For the next hour, the car kept trailing me, sometimes falling back just enough that I could barely see it, other times getting so close I could make out the faint outline of its hood. Then, about 20 miles outside Albuquerque, it just vanished. One moment it was there, the next moment it wasn't. There were no exits, no turn-offs. Just an empty stretch of highway. When I finally got to my sister's house, I sat in my parked car for a long time, checking my mirrors over and over before getting out. I don't know who was in that car, or why they followed me for hours, but the one thing I can't shake is that, in the last few minutes before it disappeared, I swear I saw a faint red glow inside it. Almost like eyes. Back in 2015, I was working as a long-haul truck driver. I'd been on the road for nearly 10 hours, and it was pushing 2 a.m. when I found myself driving down a remote stretch of highway in northern Nevada. The road was empty, the kind of empty where you can turn off your lights for a second and feel like you're floating in space. The moon was out, but the clouds kept drifting in front of it, leaving the desert in shifting shadows. I had about 30 miles to go before my next rest stop when I saw something ahead in my low beams. At first, I thought it was an animal. But as I got closer, I realized it was a woman. She was standing on the shoulder, facing the road. She wore a light-colored dress that looked out of place in the cold night. Her hair was long and dark, hanging over her face. She wasn't holding a phone, no bag, nothing. I slowed down instinctively, thinking maybe she'd been in an accident or needed help. I rolled my window down slightly and leaned toward the passenger side. "You okay, ma'am?" I called out. She didn't answer. She just tilted her head slowly, like a curious animal. Something about that movement sent a chill down my spine. I considered stopping, but a deep, gnawing instinct in my gut told me not to. I eased back onto the gas and kept moving, checking my mirrors. She didn't move from her spot. Just stood there, watching my truck fade into the distance. About 5 minutes later, I checked my side mirror again, and my blood turned to ice. She was there. Not on the shoulder anymore, but directly behind my truck, walking along the road. That wasn't possible. I'd been driving at least 50 miles per hour since I passed her. I hit the gas harder. The road stretched ahead endlessly, no towns, no lights. My hands were slick on the steering wheel. Every so often, I'd glance in the mirror. She was still there. Not running. Not even looking tired. Just walking. The way her head bobbed slightly with each step was unnatural, like she wasn't bound by the same rules of movement as the rest of us. Finally, I saw the faint glow of a rest stop up ahead. I pulled in fast, my tires crunching over gravel. There were a few other trucks there, their engines rumbling in the quiet. I killed my lights and leaned forward, trying to see if she'd follow me in. At first, nothing. The road outside the stop was empty. I started to relax, until I caught movement in my side mirror again. She was walking past the edge of the lot, still heading the same direction I'd been going, her head turning just enough that I could see a sliver of her face. Her eyes were wide open, wider than normal, and her mouth was slightly parted, like she was silently saying something I couldn't hear. I stayed there for nearly 20 minutes, pretending to check my cargo paperwork, until I couldn't see her anymore. When I finally got back on the road, I kept scanning every inch of the highway. But she was gone. I made it to my next stop without incident, but I didn't sleep much that night. To this day, I wonder what would have happened if I had actually stopped when I first saw her. Sometimes, on long night drives, I catch myself looking into the darkness on the shoulder, and wondering if she's still out there.